From Washington, D.C. to the heart of America, welcome to Mark Alford's America, freshman congressman from Missouri. Mark Alford and I believe in America. I believe in you, and most importantly, I believe that our greatest days are ahead. You know, each week we take you behind the scenes to share the stories, the news, the legislation, and most importantly, to meet the wonderful people who I have the honor of working with each and every day, helping shape our great nation. Today, we're talking with Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. He proudly represents the 3rd Congressional District of Missouri. He's committed to being a strong voice for the hardworking people of Missouri. He's a 6th-generation native of St. Elizabeth, Missouri. He has a strong ag background and small business. He graduated from Lincoln University in Jeff City, served in the Missouri House from 99 to 05, where he served as chair of the Financial Services Committee. Right now, he's on the House Financial Services Committee as chairman of the subcommittee on national security, illicit finance, and international financial institutions. He's also on the China Select Committee. We're going to get into that a little bit deeper. And I'm proud to say that I'm on the Small Business Committee with Blaine. In fact, Blaine's the one who talked me into getting on that committee. We'll talk a little bit about small business in America. Please welcome to the 5th floor of Longworth House Office Building, room 1516, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. Welcome. How's that for an intro?
Oh, that's fantastic. That's better than I can write.
You owe me $20 for that intro.
Right. Okay.
What made you want to get into Congress to begin with?
Well, I come from a town of 336 people. I come from the smallest town of anybody in Congress, so I have no base from which to run. But we did, and we managed to win. But if you come from a small town like I do, you understand that in order to get anywhere, you have to pull people together. Your community can't grow unless everybody pulls the wagon in the same direction. And as a business person in a small community, everybody is invested in the community. And as one of the people who had some businesses in the community, you get it into leadership positions and you understand what it takes to become a community, to make the community successful. And over the years, my dad was always interested in politics, never got involved.
What did he do?
He was in the bank, and he was an insurance agency, and he also owned a farm. So he was busy doing all of his stuff, trying to make a living for us. And a small town takes 2 or 3 jobs to make a living, at least it was where I come from. So he was very interested in politics, and so I became interested in just watching him and listening to him as he watched the goings-on. But it also, being in a small town and learning that in order to be able to get things done, you had to, it's the beginning of a political system. I always thought the most important job I'd have be a father. So I stayed home until my youngest child was a senior in high school. And at that point, then I jumped into a race for state rep and managed to win with a 7-way primary and all 3 went.
You were also head of tourism in Missouri.
Yeah, I was there for 6 years as a rep. And then we set out 2 years, and Governor Blunt and I came in the same time he did in the Missouri House, and so we're good friends. And we were talking back and forth, and it took 2 years. So I didn't want what he was offering me, and he didn't want to give me what I wanted. So it took 2 years before we settled on tourism. So I offered to come and be in his administration as a tourism director. And did that for a couple of years, and then came knock on my door and asked me to serve in Congress. And so here we are 16 years later, and it's been quite a ride, quite an educational experience for me, quite an honor to serve.
Why are you retiring?
I'm retiring because I'm going to be 72 years old in May, and my health is still good. And if I retire, I can actually enjoy my retirement. Mm-hmm. And so after 50 years in the private and public sector here, trying to earn a living, I hope I've earned the right to actually sit down and be able to enjoy my retirement and have the health at this point to be able to do that. So I've got 3 kids, 7 grandkids, and a wife that's ready for me to come home. Mm-hmm. And so, as you experience with your job, Mark, there are times whenever you are asked to come and do things. I know I've gotten up in the middle of a birthday party to catch a plane to come to D.C. And, when you do that a few times and you miss the kids' ball games, you miss the grandkids' ball games, and you miss family outings, family gatherings, church deals, community things, miss weddings and funerals and all sorts of things back home because you're stuck here. And after a while, you just realize that, if you keep the perspective of God, family, country in order, that after a while, the family rises above everything you're doing, and it's time to quit. And so there's where we're at. We're at the point where family now has risen to be more important than the country that I serve from the standpoint of the job I have, believing that there's other people that can now serve and do what I do. At the age that I'm at, I think that everybody retired at some point. I think 72 is a good spot for me. So,
What do you miss most about this place?
I miss the people, colleagues like you. They're great, great people. The people who are coming are wonderful people. There's a handful. I wish we could sort of, put on the lock in a room somewhere. But the people are what's great. The opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. To me, the job. People ask me what's the best thing, most important thing I've done. I said, I've made a difference in people's lives with the constituent work. It's not the legislative side that actually is what drives me from the standpoint that I wake up every morning and I got to pass a bill today, or I got to do this or do that. It's knowing that when the constituent calls, you can make a difference in that person's life. And so I can sit here the rest of the evening and give you examples of times when we made a difference in somebody's life. Now, it's not going to make national news. It's not going to make local news. And the only people that are going to know about it are me and my staff people.
But that's the true servant.
Well, that's what our job is. We are public servants, Mark, as you well know. This is why we're here. And I tell people, my board of directors are 770,000 people back home. I serve them. They don't serve me. And so when I sit in that big chair behind my desk and think big thoughts, it's not my chair. That's the people's chair. I just get to sit there for a while. And I think if you keep the perspective of the job that you're actually a servant instead of being served, I think that you will be able to be successful, because suddenly you put people above yourself. You put the people of this country, their needs, their concern, their safety above whatever else you're thinking about. Because at the end of the day, that's what our job is about. Our oath of office, protect and defend the Constitution in this country. And so that's what I think we should be doing, be concentrating on that, bringing people together to find ways for solutions. You hit the ground running and done a fantastic job on doing that. You're bringing people together all the time on issues that are important to you and your district back home, things that you want to work on. You've been a leader in small business already as a freshman, and I think you're going to have a very, very successful career. So I'm excited about working with you for another year, and then excited to see how your career takes on from there.
One of the things we worked on together recently on the campus of MU in your district, a Fentanyl Forum. We've done several. We're doing one with Emmanuel Cleaver in Kansas City coming up. What did you learn? What was your takeaway from that Fentanyl Forum?
Well, every state is a border state from the standpoint that every single one is now affected by fentanyl, by the problem that we have at the border of not closing it off. Mm-hmm. I sit on the China Select Committee as well. And so I see China sending the precursors, the ingredients for fentanyl to Mexico. It's made then into the drug. It's then shipped into the country. And, they normally catch about enough fentanyl at the border to kill every American in this country, which how much got through, who knows. But the amount of fentanyl coming in is phenomenal. It is a really, really dangerous drug that a lot of times is being used in very mischievous ways and quite frankly, in very fatal ways from the standpoint that people put it into other things and try and catch people off guard. Some people kind of play around with it, and they're playing with literally a loaded gun when they do that. You did a great job with this, getting some people there who are experts in the field from the standpoint of understanding the drug, getting people there from law enforcement to understand their perspective on how this all works. And then you have some people there who were parents of some of the children who died from an overdose. It was a very, very comprehensive roundtable town hall that you put together, and I was more than happy to participate in. And I think got good coverage for it. Hopefully people understand that this is a serious issue and we're serious about working on it. I sit on the Fentanyl Task Force.
Why is the president, we have an equivalent of a plane load, 737 a day, crashing in America. That's how many people are dying from fentanyl poisoning, and this president's not doing a darn thing about it.
Well, you have to ask him that question, Mark.
He's our next guest on Mark Hawkers.
We can guess, we can surmise what it may be, but for him, quite frankly, everything that he does is for a political reason. If you watch what he doesn't do anything unless it's for a political gain of some sort or a political score of some part. It's very disturbing where he puts people's lives at risk for political reasons, which is what he's doing. As you say, 737, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Holy smoke! The number that we died is phenomenal, and it's unnecessary.
We're going to be right back with more of Mark Offers America. When we come back, the threat from communist China. What do we need to be looking out for? We're going to talk about that and small businesses in America, the fabric of America. When we come back, you're listening to Mark Offers America. Stay with us. Welcome back to Mark Offers America, where we give you behind-the-scenes look each week at Washington, D.C. and let you meet some of the folks helping shape our nation. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer is with us today, my friend, and I do say my mentor. You helped me out early on here. The best advice that you gave me when I was running for this office and I came up here to meet with folks, you said, 1 day a week, don't let your staff know where you are. On Sundays, generally. Yeah. And by that, you didn't mean you wanted to freak them out, but you've got to preserve time for your family, and that's why you're retiring, to spend time with your family. So I applaud you.
It keeps you grounded. I think you have to understand that this job and your staff will totally consume you if allowed to happen. And so if you don't keep your roots at home and you keep your family as part of your life and keep you grounded, it's very easy to get off in some never land situation. But I know you will not let that happen. And you're somebody who understands how to keep a lot of balls in the air, about the way you've done your life up to this moment.
Well, thank you, Blaine. Why did you want to be on the China Select Committee?
Well, the Speaker, McCarthy at the time, decided to put this together because China is such an important issue. And he wanted to put people on there who were common sense and people who were not going to be lightning rods and be super partisan. He wanted this thing to be a bipartisan fact-finding committee that actually could do some work and not get bogged down in politics. And so he put myself and Andy Bard to represent the Financial Services Committee on this committee because we understand the economics and the financial side of this situation with China, whether it's investing in China or whether they're investing here, whether it's money laundering going back and forth. My committee, in fact, in Financial Services oversees money laundering around the world, financial finance. So it was a nice fit for me to be on the committee. And then Andy helps as well with the financial services.
So what is the threat from communist China right now, financial, militarily, as you understand it being on the China Select Committee?
It's all of the above. I mean, it's not just military, it's not just economic, it's pandemic-wise, it's also cyber.
Intellectual properties.
Intellectual property, they steal between $200 and $600 billion a year of intellectual property, depending on the year you're talking about, what kind of value the property may have. Pandemic-wise, we've already seen what they do with COVID. In fact, they had a lab that was discovered in California in late spring that had about 25 to 30 different pathogens that they developed by just acquiring as natural things here for the United States. One of them was COVID, and a couple of them were pneumococcal type things, but bacteria that they could get into where there's a water system, air systems, wherever here in this country, already set up in this country, and it's producing. And China is funding it to about 1.2 to 1.3.
What's their end game?
Well, if they can disrupt us, what COVID do to our economy?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they can disrupt us in so many different ways. And so, militarily, obviously they're a threat, but I think as long as we can stay even with them, that keeps them at bay. That being said, Taiwan is a real problem because they're intent on taking over Taiwan. Our own military says they're going to invade by 2027. That's not me, that's our military that's making that projection. But I think the real threat is the economy itself. Because I think that they can, if we don't pay attention and keep investing in China, we are basically feeding a land that can eat us. If we it takes about $300 billion a year for them to surveil, detain, and build new detention camps for their own people.
How much a year?
$300 billion a year. Our trade deficit last year was in 2022 was $382 billion. I haven't found what the 2023 trade deficit was.
This is to detain dissidents.
Yes.
Or the Uyghurs within the Chinese population.
Well, they surveil their people too. They have this really extensive surveillance system. And they also have a social score. So if you want to change jobs, you want to change apartments, you want to buy a house, go to school, whatever it is, if your social score is at a certain level, because they watch everything you say, watch everything you do, who you talk to, what kind of interactions you have with everybody. It's almost like if you've ever read the book by George Orwell, 1984, it's like that. That is almost a photocopy of what the Chinese are doing today. And so they're watching everything they do and documenting it and controlling it with this huge amount of data that they have on each individual person, coming up with a social score, and then controlling those people. But, we have to be very careful from the standpoint that if we continue to fund them, their military takes about $290 billion a year to fund. So you can see with the trade deficit of $382 billion, we were funding one or the other here, if not part of both. And so we have to be very careful, because if you're going to fund their activities and their ability to undercut, and if you look at what they're doing, they're seriously terrified, they're petrified of their own people. And so if they don't have full employment, they're ripe for unrest among the people. Right now, their youth unemployment rate is skyrocketing, and they're scared to death. And so
Why is that happening?
Well, they just don't have enough jobs. Their economy is starting.
So they're dependent upon us, though, to buy all their crap.
Well, what they do is they subsidize industries that produce this stuff and have to have full employment. Mm-hmm. So if they employ every single person, they overproduce. So that if they overproduce this stuff, they can sell it at a very discounted rate over here just to get rid of their surplus and get rid of everything. So they sell a discount and undermine our own industries. And then as they undermine those, our industries collapse. And so that they take over those industries. Look at all the different industries that are going to China altogether. Semiconductors, computer chips, pharmaceuticals, clothing, textiles. I mean, the list is endless. And so they have taken us over without firing a shot. And this is what my concern is, that if we don't stop this investing over there. And they had about 1,000 companies on our own stock exchange, 1,000 Chinese companies that you could invest in on our stock exchange. And they're mostly shell companies, just so they can take the money and then run it through the government and the Communist Party. And so we put a rule in place a couple of years ago, back after 2020, that said they had to be audited at least every 2 years. And so 750 of them dropped off the exchange. That's how many shell companies she had. So I've got a bill right now to reduce that down to 1 year. Like all the rest of our companies have to be audited every year. Why should the Chinese not have to have theirs? So if we do that, I think we'll get down to half a dozen. I think you'll be surprised how many more drop off, because they don't want you to know what's going on in their country and who owns these companies and where the money is going. Because if you do this, you will see that all the money was routed through the Communist government and the Communist Party.
I have a lot of listeners right now to this program who are small business owners. Small business owners face a lot of challenges, access to capital, as we heard in recent testimony from Mr. O'Leary from Shark Tank. What do you see as the biggest challenge to small businesses, and what can the SBA do with our oversight to make it better?
Well, I think in our committee hearing the other day, Mark, as you heard, one of the witnesses said that the average now is about $150 billion per year for regulatory costs that this administration is causing our business community, and small business and large business. But it's a huge cost driver, and that has to be factored in. When you have to have people to do paperwork, or you've got to jump through more hoops, that's a huge cost you have to incur. And if you're a small business, you can't afford to hire lots and lots of people. So it really puts a lot of pressure on people. I've known small businesses going out of business simply because they couldn't put up the rules and regulations. You see consolidation going on all the time, and it's rules and regulations that are forcing this to a certain extent. But I mean, small businesses are tracked from lots of different ways. I mean, whether it's, over the pandemic time, we saw that the supply chain was a big problem. A lot of other countries are doing things that we should be doing here that would help us be able to be more protective of our own industries, yet it put our businesses, our small business especially, at the mercy of other countries' abilities to provide that. And especially if it's with China, all of a sudden now we got a really big problem. So there's this, small businesses have a lot of pressure on lots of different areas, but to me, inflation is eating away at their ability to price the product at a price that they can make money at and pay their bills. We have a continued pressure from rules and regulations that has to force up their price costs as well. And the competition for employees is huge. I mean, prices are like a little bit down. We have set a new bar when it comes to the cost of whatever you're providing, because the cost of labor has risen to a certain point, and it's not going to go backwards.
No.
It's going to stay where it's at and probably get higher yet. And so you may have some fluctuation with some of these other inputs, but labor is going to be one that's going to be static and get higher. So yeah, the small businesses are going to continue to be under pressure.
Blaine, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. And thank you, folks, for listening to Mark Alford's America. We'll talk again next week. Until then, remember, I believe in you. I believe our best days are still ahead of us. And Blaine Luetkemeyer, I believe in America.